Good morning. If you've been following me on Instagram, you will have noticed that I have been building this shed over the past couple of days, and in fact preparing for the shed for a couple of weeks actually. We started off by clearing the area and putting some concrete down. It's really important to get a nice strong base for this shed. Now this shed's going to be the fish house, my new fish house. And the reason for this is my current fish house, although it's working really well and it's still got many years ahead of it, it's getting really crowded. We'll just show you the problems I'm facing. So long-time viewers of my channel will have seen this being built, and you'd have seen me put these tanks in, and it does work really well. It's nice and lined, everything is growing really well, but unfortunately everything is kind of getting in the way of everything else. These tanks, the way that I've put them all in here, it wasn't done by design, it was kind of done by how I got the tanks and in what order, and that's just how it happened, because really most of these tanks have been reclaimed from a fish shop, or they've been sent to me, like this one from Fluval. This one I got from another shop. So I had no real plan about this, it was just kind of as and when they turned up, that's when I put the tanks in. And I mean, the way the tanks are at the moment would be fine if it was just the YouTube channel in this shed, but some of you will also know that I run an algae business, so I sell macroalgae, and I'm trying to do two things in one shed. It's a bit of a mess at the moment, excuse me, but this is like the packing area where I do my orders. But as well as that, we've got videos being made in here, and it's just getting too crowded. I need more space. I need to separate my nice display tanks from my business, and essentially that is what this shed's all about as well. Now it's quite a big space, so you can hear it's quite echoey, and I've been building this with the wife over the last couple of days.
It doesn't look like I've moved all day.
Metal sheds are great, but the disadvantage is the sheer number of bolts and screws, but we're getting there. So we're just up the ladder. We've got most of the shed done now. I'm just up the ladder actually, just doing the roofing. You can see most of the internal structures done, all the internal structures done, and we just turn around to see how far. You can just see how far I've got with the roof, basically. It's quite fiddly, and it's going to be quite a long time to do this, but it's not hard, it's just fiddly, and I'm really stupidly up a ladder with flip-flops, and that's probably not the best thing to be doing, but I feel okay, it's no problem. So we'll get this finished off, and then it's pretty much the shed done, other than the door and all the sort of cladding bits that make it look a bit prettier. And it's been okay, it's been a reasonable build. I was actually really impressed with how the shed came together. The box kind of had all of the parts in the box as you need them in the manual, so really quite good. It's a nice solid metal shed. It's 15 feet by 11.5 feet. You can see we've got the nice concrete base, so it's doing really well. I haven't quite finished it yet. There's still some trim work to do, and I've got to put the door on. And then we've got the fun job of insulating it, and then we've got to get power to it. So we'll have a look at the insulation. I'm being watched by the horses. If we talk about the insulation, because being a metal shed, it's a good conductor of heat and I guess cold. So we need to insulate this so that in the summer it doesn't get roasting, and in the winter it doesn't get freezing. Now my other shed is actually really warm. This shed here is really warm all year round. It's about 15 degrees warmer than the outside temperature in the winter. So you can see here at the moment it's 10 in the morning and it's 23.5 degrees. I think it's about 15 degrees outside. So these tanks generate a lot of heat, which is good, and that means in the winter we're going to be able to generate heat into the shed. because I'm not going to be able to heat the room really in this, because just to where it's located on the property. So what we're going to do is use Celotex, probably 50mm Celotex, all the way around, which is a insulation board basically. It's like a foamy stuff. And then what we're going to do is we're going to put plyboard over the top of that. What I'm thinking of doing is putting bolts through from the outside to hold the plyboard on the Celotex. So I'll glue the Celotex on and then we'll bolt the plyboard on. It's just basically because I don't want to be doing wooden batons in here. Just for a cost perspective, it's cheaper just to do the bolts. And I'm thinking it'll work just the same way. It's just holding these boards in place. And what we also need to do is fill up all the gaps here, because you can see sunlight coming through. The sunlight coming through here, and when we get rain up here, because I'm on top of a hill, when we get rain it comes across this field. Sometimes it comes sideways. There's a helicopter. Anyway, yeah, so excuse the helicopter. It comes sideways and it will go up these vents, so we need to make sure that these vents are completely filled and watertight. So that's the plan for the second, really. Get some silicone. We're going to silicone all the little screw holes. I haven't done these bolts up yet. I need to remember to do that. So we'll silicone all that up, and then we'll use waterproof expanding foam on all the major gaps just to fill them up. Now, in terms of the floor, I've got it concreted, and it's a bit of a big decision, because I either insulate it and obviously it will stay a bit warmer, or I leave it concrete. And I'm leaning towards leaving it concrete, because most of the fish houses I've ever worked in have just had concrete floors. They haven't been insulated with a lino over the top. Also, because this is a metal shed, you'll get a bit of condensation, and concrete is quite good for kind of absorbing a bit of that condensation. So I'm really strongly feeling about leaving this to be just concrete. My other shed was raised on wood, and that was a bit of a mistake because that rotted over a couple of years and I've had to replace it. And at least with a concrete base, I know that it's solid. I know that the tanks aren't going to sink into it or anything like that. And I mean, you might get a little bit of degradation of the concrete, especially with salt water over a few years, but I don't think it's going to be anything particularly nasty or unexpected. So I'll probably just leave it like that. So once we have the insulation up, we're going to have the Celotex, we'll have plyboard. The roof, I'm probably not going to use Celotex on it. I'll probably use a thinner sheet material, but we'll play that by ear. It's just a matter of kind of judging weight and judging how to attach it. Then we need to get electricity, and this is the big thing, because I'm quite far away from the house up here, but we do have an outbuilding. So in the sort of allotment area, duck shack area, kind of in this corner, in this stable block, that corner there is a consumer unit, so an electrical box essentially that comes from the main house. There's already cable all the way up to that from the house, all done by an electrician, and I need to get cable from there, essentially along there, and then into this corner. I'm strongly leaning towards paying an electrician to do it, because although it's not very far, and some people probably would just say hook some cable up to it, run it along, and then into another consumer unit in my shed, or maybe just a couple of sockets. I want it to be done in a way that I can sleep at night and not worry that it's going to set fire to everything. So that's kind of the gist of the electrical system. In terms of water, we're really fortunate because this is a main supply. We use this essentially for giving these beasts something to drink. So I'm just going to tap off that straight into the shed, and then down the centre here, and also on the other side, excuse the water feature, that's a soakaway. So, you know, easy, just run pipes out the shed into the soakaway, and that goes off down and into the ground kind of thing. So that's no problem. Here's another soakaway with the pipe that's freshly installed, and that goes into a drainage system down behind that other shed. So water's easy, insulation's reasonably easy. It's just the electrical bit that I'm worried about, and I'm not an electrician, and I feel like I should get it done by someone who is. So that's kind of the current mental state on that. And then we'll basically at that point have a insulated box, and that's where the fun sort of starts, because then we can start moving tanks in. Now I'm going to be doing predominantly macroalgae in here, and we're going to have some glass tanks because I'm going to order some, and I'm going to obviously move a lot of my tanks over. But on one side essentially we're going to have a really big sump. I haven't decided which corner it's going to be in, probably here. So I'm going to put a 600 litre sump there, and then we're going to have macroalgae racking. It's better like that, you can see it better. We're going to have macroalgae racking along here. Fortunately this shed's a bit taller than my other one, so I can actually probably get 2 decent rows in. And on the other side, probably half of one side is going to be fresh water, and then we're going to have another macroalgae system on this corner, because I want to do 2 separate systems. I want to do one system for red algae and one system for green algae, because I found growing them together they sort of hinder each other. So we're going to separate those 2, and then in the center, if it all lines up, we'll have our packing bench for when I get orders and things. So it's going to be really cool. And somewhere in here as well, we're going to be adding like an RO system where it will automatically, or reasonably automatically, create RO mixed to salt water. Because at the moment, one of the biggest jobs in my current shed is actually water changes. So currently we've got lots of different systems in here. We've got this tank here, shrimp tank separate, this bay separate, this tank separate, this tank separate, this tank separate, and they're all salt water. They're all quite large volumes, so what I have to do is use a big blue barrel, use my RO unit there, which is quite a small RO unit, fill it up with RO, salt it, drain the tank, refill it. So, you know, it can take about a week to do this entire shed, which is way, way, way too much. So in this shed, we're going to have it a bit more systemized. So as I said, we're going to have a big sump there, and then to drain that, it's going to be a tube going outside. I'm going to open a valve up, it's going to drain the sump, and then we're going to have some fixed barrels which I use to mix salt in, and then I'm going to open another valve from that barrel if it's there, I'm not sure. That's just going to go back into the sump and refill it. So it's going to be a matter of opening a couple of valves and the water change is going to be done. And we're going to have that running into 2 separate systems. So theoretically, water changing the entire system should take, you know, less than a day, or however long it takes for the RO to regenerate. I'll get a bigger RO system. So when you're dealing with thousands of litres of salt water, you kind of want it to be done reasonably quickly, not have to hang around filling up barrels day after day. So that's the idea. So essentially that's the build so far. It's a really solid shed. I recommend, if you're looking for an outbuilding, a metal shed really is good. But they are reasonably hard to build. There's lots of little bolts and joints, and you have to follow the directions to the letter, because, you know, there's lots of little bits that look the same, and you think, oh well, it looks sort of like that, and actually it turns out it's the wrong part, and it's got holes drilled in slightly the wrong points, and they don't all line up. So you really have to make note of the codes on the bits. You have to make note of the fact that they have to go exactly in the right orientation, and not to skip steps and think you can do one thing before the other. It's really important to follow the instructions. But if you do, it is reasonably easy to put together. The hardest part of this shed was probably the roof, because it's just a one-man job. You can't really do it as 2 people. And it took me 2 days to do this roof. It was an absolute nightmare. But the rest of it was fine, you know. So yeah, so that's where we're at. We'll get the shed finished. In the next video, we'll probably do a bit of insulation. I've got some silicone coming. I'll get some expanding foam, and we'll do a bit of insulation work. I'd like to just do this as a casual kind of thing, build it slowly as I go, as the funds appear, because I probably don't have enough money at the moment to actually finish this. but hopefully it will dribble in and we can just do piece by piece and get it up to a standard maybe within 6 months or so. So if you're interested in that, you know, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, hit the bell and all those things, and we will continue in another video. Once again, thank you for watching and happy fish keeping.